Hi, my name is Tamsa Macbeth, and I'm going to discuss the Fort Hall Mine Landfill program being implemented by Bannock County to address groundwater contamination emanating from the landfill and impacting the Portneuf Valley aquifer. This is the sole source of drinking water for nearly all residents within the Pocatello, Chubbuck, and surrounding areas. The Fort Hall Mine Landfill is located south of Pocatello and has operated since 1943. Hazardous chemicals received from the landfill users were disposed in an unlined area known as Cell 1, shown here in the video with the yellow outline. This resulted in the uncontrolled release of these chemicals to the environment, which ultimately leached to groundwater. The landfill was operated from 1943 to 1973 by a private operator as just an open dump. In 1973, the city of Pocatello purchased the landfill and transferred the operations to the city's sanitation department. The city operated the landfill until 1976, disposing of additional waste into this Cell 1 area. Legislation enacted by the state of Idaho dictated that solid waste disposal facilities had to come under county level control. And so in 1976, the landfill property was purchased by Bannock County. Bannock County assumed control of the landfill and has operated the landfill since. Bannock County operated the Cell 1 area of the landfill from 1976 to 1993. Cell 1 is approximately 65 acres in size, and you can see for reference the purple rectangle representing a football field. During its operational history, the Cell 1 received 1.5 million tons of mixed residential, commercial, construction, demolition, and industrial waste. Because this Cell 1 area is unlined, chemicals leached beneath this waste area vertically and into groundwater. And you can see in the video the water table shown in the blue. Chemicals then migrated with groundwater down the Fort Hall Canyon and out into the Portneuf Valley aquifer. In 1992, groundwater from the municipal supply wells was sampled, and it was discovered to contain trichloroethylene, or TCE, at concentrations that exceeded the safe drinking water level. Subsequent investigations identified the Cell 1 area as the source of contamination, with a plume that extended nearly 5 miles from the landfill, shown here in plan view. This plume impacted domestic wells, identified as the RW locations, as well as municipal supply wells, shown here as the Muni wells. The plume extent delineated between this 1992 and 2002 period was again nearly 5 miles. The Idaho Department of Environmental Quality asked Bannock County to investigate and remediate groundwater contamination emanating from the landfill. And as such, a groundwater treatment system was installed in 2002 to remove TCE and other chemicals in groundwater, and we'll talk about that in just a second. As a result of those remedial efforts, the groundwater plume has shrunk since 2002, and we can see here the plan view extent of the current plume delineated based on data collected in 2020. As we move from plan view to cross section, again you can get a different perspective about the depth of groundwater and contamination migrating in groundwater, again initially in 2002 impacting those municipal supply wells and those domestic wells, and then we can see the retraction of the plume as a result of the nearly 18 years of pump and treat operations to its current extent of about 1 mile long. It's important to understand that groundwater flow coming from the cell 1 area is very complicated. The geology varies significantly and really dictates how chemicals migrate within the aquifer. This is our current groundwater model. This is 2 areas within the model showing chemical transport in blue that occurs within the alluvium. The alluvium is what I like to call the hair. It's very transmissive, fast-moving portion of the aquifer. And you can see here how chemicals migrate relatively quickly with the evolution of that nearly 5-mile plume occurring within 15 years of chemicals first discharging into the aquifer. On the right, we have what's known as the starlight area. This is a very low transmissivity portion of the aquifer where groundwater migrates and chemicals migrate, but much, much slower. So you can see here for comparison the extent of chemicals moving after 25 years and then 30 years of movement, and that the starlight plume is much smaller, but at this point now 40 years after chemicals were disposed has made it to the Portneuf Valley Aquifer. So it's these contributions from these different areas within the plume that are important to understand, and this complexity is part of the reason why the chemical plume has not yet been completely contained. Now we'll migrate into the Fort Hall Canyon where our remediation system is currently operating. You can see here in plan view the RWs are the remediation system extraction wells, and those wells are pumping groundwater, bringing that contaminated groundwater to the surface, treating it in above ground treatment plant, and re-injecting the clean water into the aquifer. So you can see here the evolution of the chemical plume, both the extent of contamination has been reduced within Fort Hall Canyon significantly from the 2002 time period when those extraction wells started operating to current 2020 conditions. Again, however, we still do see significant impacts within the Fort Hall Canyon, and we know that chemicals are continuing to bypass those remediation system extraction wells.